know I'm excited about today's topic because I'm wearing the hat.
They'll never be great again.
Don't all say the that. AI you don't know.
All the AI in the world can't help Jerry Jones get out of his own way.
He should probably consult an AI. He probably should. While I'm angry with you for saying that, I tend to agree. It's upsetting.
Yeah, sorry for hurting your feelings.
We should
Truth stings sometimes.
I'm still wearing the hat, and I'm still on board with this project. I don't know how it's going to happen, but maybe.
Hey, this is your year. You know, the season hasn't started yet.
Right.
So it's just like every year, this is your year.
This is, again, I've said it before, this is the best time to be a Cowboys fan. We're going to the Super Bowl, baby.
That's right. You're never any closer to the Super Bowl than you are in preseason as a Cowboys fan.
That really hurts. It's very bitter. It's very, very bitter. It hurts all the more because it's true. Ooh, that's upsetting.
So, in the interest of speaking of declining empires like the Cowboys are, do we think America is a declining empire? Okay. Tony, your thoughts?
Okay, so the Cowboys are a declined empire. That's not declining; they have declined.
So, are we, when compared to Rome, where are the Cowboys at in their empire?
Oh, this is easily the Visigoths are inside the walls. It's not even close. Like the Pope saved us the first time, but not the second time.
No amount of prayer can
pull
you out of this.
No, we've made our bed. We're gonna sleep in it apparently. But yeah, in hopefully more optimistic news, while the sports empire that was the Cowboys is definitely past its twilight and may never rise again, there is, and this is an opinion that is getting more traction. I'm hearing it more and more. I've recently heard the vaunted and venerable Mr. Shapiro talk about this. I think he has a valid point on the comparison between the U.S. and China and whether China is rising and the U.S. falling, or are they peer-to-peer, or is it actually inverted? And I think there are good reasons why we are rightfully nervous that America is in decline and China is ascending. And those shouldn't be taken lightly at all. But I tend to agree with Shapiro that it is actually not the case. And I come at that not so much, while I think the evidence, the empirical evidence bears that out, I would have told you, if you had asked me before I started to see some of the real empirical evidence, if you had asked me, is America declining and China ascending, I would have told you, well, America might be declining, but I don't think China is ascending. And I would have told you that without having the data, simply because China is communist. It's, now granted, insofar as it has reformed its communist system, it has prospered. And that is, I'll say it's not a great story because it's still a very oppressive totalitarian place, but insofar as they have allowed people to make their own lives better through economic activity, that has done a great deal of good for many, many people in China. It is not by any means the majority of the people in China, but a great many people have benefited from the reforms.
Well, and I think it's worth mentioning that there was, to fight the big red scare, there was obviously a huge injection of Western ideology and capital into China during the 60s and 70s that has helped with a lot of that as well. And it's also, to kind of give the devil his due, so to speak, China's the oldest country in the world. I mean, they have existed for a very, 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 very long time. 900 something years, I think, is how long they've been an established country within their borders, plus or minus a few hundred miles here or there. So they obviously have survived and weathered a lot and have a lot of cultural history and heritage to lean on in terms of their ability to progress through various iterations of history. But I think for me, I always come to this place of like, when we say, is China a rising empire or is America a declining empire, what are our standards of judgment? Like what kind of framework are we using to decide what a rising empire looks like? And by obviously comparison there, what is a declining empire?
So there are economic, usually the arguments that are made are economic, and I don't think the data supports that. I would say that my thought on, if I were going to make the argument that America is declining and China is ascending, I would make the argument on a cultural basis. China believes in itself, and America does not.
Yeah.
And that is, now granted, there is a majority, I would say, and it crosses political lines, left, right. People in America, even though we are having an identity crisis right now, most people in America still believe in America and want it to be successful. Even people on the left and on the radical right, both sides, very, very few people are actively anti-American and want to actively destroy it. Now, that number is bigger. The number of people who actively want to tear it down is too big.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's certainly bigger than it should be, but not
Correct.
big enough to effectuate any actual change in that department.
I think the effect of that is larger because of the type of society we are. We're very, very open. Our media at the moment, although that's changing, our media at the moment is not that it wants to destroy anything, but it's kind of on the side of the people that are the burn it all down sorts, and so it makes it seem bigger than it is.
Yeah.
But most people that I talk to, and I'm sure this is the case for you, not to say that we aren't in our own little bubbles, because we got to think that is possible, that we're in our own little bubbles, but I talk to people of many different political persuasions, and most Americans are not radical either side.
No, of course not. And I think it's safe to assume that, like, when we say radical, I think a synonym for that is fringe, and we're talking about the ends of the bell curve. You know what I mean? So that is a very reasonable assumption that I think doesn't put either of us in an echo chamber, because, yeah, like, your echo chamber is Texas and mine is Oklahoma, but if you were to go to Maine and I were to go to, I don't know, Ohio, I bet you we would have that same experience where we might find different cultures and different political persuasions. But I think both of us would still, after spending, let's say, 2 or 3 months in both of those climates, I think we would hesitate to label the majority of the people that we encountered as fringe elements or extremists or the burn it all down crowd. I think that most people, by and large, have enough sense to understand that the place that they live, they want to see succeed. And making this, I think, more of an atomistic argument, nobody goes out there and says, I want to see my dad fail. I want to see my mom suffer. You know, like, you don't say that about your family unit because you understand that would have real and lasting consequence upon you as a teenager, as a kid. So you're not going to see many people that I think actually think that and feel that to the depth and core of their being about their country or about their state. That would be foolish because, again, you're wishing for your own demise in that process. You're saying, I wish America would fail, and by proxy, me too.
Yeah, I want this ship to sink, and I'm going down with it, I guess.
That is a very silly way to think about the world, I think. So I would agree that most people that I almost all, 98% of the people that I encounter would never say that and don't mean it. They do not think that way. They have zero ill will towards the country that they live in. And they, I think, don't think of America as even declining empire to that point.
Even if there are people I know who I think have fringe beliefs, but when you sit down and talk to them on day to day, not really. They may toy with the radical communist side or the radical right.
Yeah, as more of a thought experiment, but not
Right,
necessarily a means of life.
But their day to day is not that at all, and they certainly don't live by those principles.
Yeah.
They're not acting it out. So, but I will say that all of that being said, America is still in an identity crisis. Like I used to say to people I knew, to people who would listen. This would have been back in 2012 through 2015. I used to say and used to believe that what was going to kill America was the debt, and it's a big problem, and we'll get into it. But after, I'd say 2015, it became clear to me
the culture.
Yeah. Was the most. If we can't agree that despite our political differences, which are mostly stupid and petty anyway, like most of it is silly. Not to minimize the very real points of contention about how we should move forward, but if we can't agree that, and here's the thing, if we can't agree that we should be moving forward, then we've got a real problem. Yeah. That'll kill you first.
And that's, I think, where our political apparatus is really broken down to two different camps that are now lobbing stones at one another, is over whether or not this is worth saving. And that's stupid. That is stupid.
Really dumb.
We need to get back to a point where we're debating how we're moving forward regarding maybe tax policy and what we're spending that money on, and our foreign policy and our domestic policy. Like those are debates the right and the left should be having, not debates over culture and things like that. The society itself needs to be sorting that out on its own. I don't think if I see another political representative, right or left, making these arguments on another news site, it'll be too soon. Like I'm very tired of this place of politics where we're having arguments and debates over culture and not fiscal policy of the United States.
Yes, I
make politics boring again, please.
I agree wholeheartedly, and it truly is a silly thing to be divided about, especially when we know really and truly most of us basically agree. And I'm willing to say that while I would consider myself my views on how the American government should operate, I would like to radically reform it back to its original state. If I could wave a magic wand, I would bring us back to the 1890s as far as how the size of government and what it did.
Size and scope for sure.
And
I mean, that would check a lot of the boxes right there, honestly.
But I'm willing, because I know that there's a whole party that is big government. I'm willing to negotiate my existence with them if we're willing to say, yeah, we're still all on the same team.
Yeah.
Because this bifurcation existed during one of our big national tests, World War II. Mm-hmm. The FDR side was in some ways more socialist than we are now, and the Republican side is far more conservative than we are now. So,
I mean, the conservatives of today would have been labeled left-leaning
by some of
the standards of that era, certainly.
So in some ways not, but in most ways, yes. But we were able to, those differences while they were there, had in real effect no meaningful effect on our ability to not only fight that war, but win it in such a way that we became a spectacle in human history.
Yeah.
Nothing ever like it. Amazing logistical and war fighting capability, but also rebuilt the world in our image, essentially. And that has its downsides and all that. But we did that with a similar bifurcation in our politics. in some ways a more stark one because
Yeah.
FDR's policies were pretty radically socialist in many ways, a lot of government control that nowadays the government would not try to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well,
so-
especially in the post-depression stuff with, a lot of the New Deal era
Correct.
policies and, the building of the interstate system, for instance. And there are things that I don't think our government would even attempt today that were successfully, accomplished, back
Right.
then. One thing I think on the kind of the China thing that is interesting to mention here is one of our biggest strengths as a country ends up being one of our biggest weaknesses on the global scale, and it is that political bifurcation. So China really has an advantage in this department being communist in the sense that they do not ever have to concern themselves with 4 to 8 year swings. It doesn't happen. They can plan on 10, 20, 40 year timescales that the United States really just doesn't think of because we're just worried about getting to the next election. And so I think in a lot of ways that presents a pretty big disadvantage when you're dealing with something like a China, because you aren't able to wrap your head around the size and scope of the issues and the time scale that China's playing with.
I don't disagree, except in this regard, I'll say it gives them an acute advantage in the short term. But long term, the problem with the Chinese system is it is not monolithic. It is subject to the same types of upheavals.
Sure.
But it doesn't have a mechanism for smoothing those upheavals out. So there was a recent purge of top Chinese military officials, military members, generals. That is a real problem if you were to prosecute a war and you just gutted your top leadership, you're not going to be able to prosecute that war as well as if you had them. But Xi Jinping did so because he's an authoritarian.
And he can.
And from his view, he had to. Well, that's a huge disruption that you can't really see until you put it into practice or try to actually execute something. So yes, it allows them to do things like fund a project and use the entire force of the body politic to do something. But it has, because it's totalitarian, it has, when there's a changeover, it's usually violent.
Yeah, well, I guess to give credit to that point, there's a reason totalitarian regimes have never worked long term, and that I think
Insofar as they try to be as a totalitarian as possible.
Yeah.
So
and I think China is obviously the biggest threat that the United States faces, both culturally and economically. I think it's fair to say that Chinese culture is starting to become a problem to the extent that it's bleeding into American culture. I mean, TikTok is a fantastic example. That's owned by China. It's operated by China, and they are becoming a major player in their own neighborhood in their own right.
Or has it been bought now by American companies? Because it was made illegal by an act of Congress, and then Trump delayed it to hopefully get TikTok to be sold to an American company so that they could close that back door that the CCP had into the app.
As of January of 26, you are correct.
Okay.
China signed off a divestment deal that handed majority ownership over 80% to an American-led consortium. Private equity from Silver Lake, Oracle, and Abu Dhabi-based MGX are the majority shareholders.
So that would be, and that's a great point. American TikTok was different from Chinese TikTok.
Yeah.
So it's not so much an invasion of Chinese culture, but an invasion of the Chinese political arm.
Yeah.
Into our soft spaces.
Well, the reason I say their culture is because one thing that I've noticed because I'm on TikTok, like one thing I've noticed that's really interesting on TikTok is this just glazing of Chinese tech. Like oh, well, the phones they have in China, they're just so advanced. And our market's just not going to be able to survive when Chinese cars come to the United States. And I vividly remember the Russian invasion of Ukraine when the Chinese tires couldn't get Russia 60 miles south to Kyiv. So, like, objectively speaking, all available evidence that I've seen indicates that they're pretty well behind us in terms of, if not R&D, certainly quality control. I mean, everybody's ordered Chinese junk on Amazon, and the QC on it's a joke. I mean, it just is. Yeah. Like, some of it's cool, some of it's great. I ordered a birdhouse for my wife that had a camera in it that was like Bluetooth mode, obviously very Chinese. And that thing connected to my Wi-Fi once and then never again. And it I'm convinced was a piece of spyware past that point because it had a battery that just wouldn't die. And it kept trying to connect to my network over and over and over and over every like 30 minutes for, I'm not even joking, 6 months. But it never worked. And so I get this idea, but I think a lot of it is wishful thinking from these people in the United States that just need a reason to hate the United States and something else to grab onto.
They're on some sort of communist, tourism. The Hassan Pikers of the world who for some reason they think it's really, really cool, and it's mostly part of it is just screw you, Dad. A lot of it's just that, and we're gonna pick the exact opposite of what we think are
Cope harder weenies.
What?
I said cope harder weenies. Cope
cope harder weenies.
Cope harder weenies.
Yes. But I think in a way that's a fad. But obviously TikTok was injecting, and might still be to a certain extent, injecting what is ultimately Chinese propaganda about itself into just to make us think. The Soviets did this constantly.
Yeah.
And it wasn't true. And
well, we were at a much stronger cultural point in history, in our history specifically at that time, where like everybody in the United States loved being American in the 70s and 80s, for the most part. I mean, there were obviously exceptions to that, but far more than today.
It wasn't even, although, I would agree, it wasn't even love. It was an existential threat. People really felt that regardless of what I think about how the world should be ordered, the Soviets will kill me just because I'm here. Even if you're a communist leaning or a communist sympathizer, and not to say that there weren't plenty of those and that the Soviets used them, but in general, people in America, even if they lean left, still saw the Soviets as a threat. And even if they didn't love America the way a patriot would, they preferred America because they felt like the Soviets are gonna kill us if we don't. We have to resist them because they're after us. And the Soviets really were. They were attempting to expand as much as they could and oppress as much as they could. I don't think that China is as aggressively communist as the Bolsheviks in Russia are.
I mean, assuredly, they're definitely not.
And if once I hope and pray that once they decide that Xi Jinping is, we don't want Winnie the Pooh running our government anymore, because that's what doesn't he kind of like? I almost said I almost said that's mean. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's not a nice guy. He's verifiably not a nice guy.
Winnie the Pooh.
We don't want him running our economy anymore, and they get somebody else in there. I think
the Temu Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Temu.
He's otherwise he just looks very upset. He's the most powerful man in China, and he still looks very, very upset about it.
Oh, bother. Yeah, he does. He does generally seem pretty upset.
He looks like Winnie the Pooh, but he's actually Eeyore.
It's very astute
just
observation.
He's such a sourpuss. Tell me he's not. He looks unhappy about everything.
Yeah.
It's like, you're incredibly wealthy. Just smile once.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Yeah,
digress.
valid. No, I love this rant.
I don't think the Chinese people, or even the Chinese Communist Party, is nearly as married to communism as the Politburo was in the Soviet Union. Not to say that that the Chinese aren't actual communists and totalitarians, which they are, but to me, they are not nearly as ideologically bound to it at all levels of their society.
Well, I think Chinese heritage, history, and culture are stronger than communism is over there,
Much
and
stronger.
that's where my earlier statement of them existing for over 900 years is relevant. Is that's what they're married to?
And I should say, I actually the what I want to get to in all of this is actually, I would like to see neither of us decline, and I would like to see, because I do not think that America has any. If we were to operate the way we want to operate, we don't have any natural enemies.
No.
We are not necessarily, we can be, but we're not necessarily a warlike people. And if we could get everyone to trade with us, we could allow the Chinese to be big and powerful, and more power to them. I don't think there's any natural enmity between us and the Chinese people or the Russians. It's communism, deeper than that. It's not just communism. Communism is just the most recent flavor or iteration of totalitarianism. And I'm not saying we could get it to go away, but the only problem I have with China is its totalitarian aspects. I want China to be as successful as it can be. I have no natural enmity towards them.
Yeah.
And
Same
so,
with Russia to that point. I mean,
right.
Like
if you had asked me, if you had asked me in the 90s, not that I would have given you an intelligent answer, but I would have had a natural enmity towards Russia, because I was still thinking of it as the Soviets. And it was, so I've had to grow out of that over time.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not the same thing. It's not the big Red Scare. You don't have to be naturally angry or mad and afraid of Russia. It's not the same. So I think that I would like for us both to ascend. Now, there is the point that many, and I can't disagree with it to a certain extent, that a historian, and maybe a more cynical historian would say, you can't have two big kids on the block. They're eventually going to fight. And that may be true.
I was going to say, historically, they'd be right.
Right. Now, I would say that maybe because of nuclear weapons, we could make that fight economic and not an actual shooting war. And that is the the cool thing, if you want to say it that way, about nuclear weapons, is they might make two peer adversaries
More gun shy than they otherwise
decide
would
to
have been.
not
Yeah.
go to war with each other.
Well, but I guess this poses a question then. Like, I feel like personally an argument could be made that we're already in an economic war with China, just maybe a diet one.
China would say that they are in one with us. I think we're waking up to it, but I don't think I think the American people are already very well aware of it and look at China as an adversary. I do not think our political establishment, I think they know it. I think they are perfectly aware of it. They simply aren't acting on it because I think some of them are being paid off, like directly through campaign contributions by the Communist Party. And others are just bad representatives. Like, they're lazy, they're an empty suit, and they just want to collect a check.
Well,
and that's probably most of our...
Yeah, I was going to say, even beyond those, I think that there are others that have their attention fixed on issues of the past and not necessarily issues of the present, whether that's Russia, Ukraine, or the Middle East at large. I think that we have our political apparatus, at least I should say, because I do agree. I think the broader American public knows that, like, the big threat, if there were a threat, is assuredly China. I just don't feel like our political representation is fully at that. And an argument could be made, and we've made the argument before, that I think some of what Trump is doing is, as they put it, the 3D chess to combat China's influence in certain specific regions. And I'm sensitive to some of those arguments, although I would like to see more done to specifically address China's influence, because, I mean, we know for a fact that they're meddling around in our tech. We know for a fact that they're paying people for military secrets. My brother-in-law does, I can't speak obviously on what it is specifically because I don't know the full specifics of it, but he works in the tech sector on various contracts within the defense realm for the United States government. And I mean, he's been briefed dozens of times on, maintaining security around IP and various other forms of like technology that we have from like China, as well as being briefed on the ways that they go about obtaining this, what forums specifically to avoid. I hate that I'm even about to say this. War Thunder specifically got brought up. The game War Thunder specifically got brought up because idiot nerds that play that game love to leak technology and technical manuals to win arguments. And that's like a massive breach of security for American intelligence. So that's something he's been briefed on specifically. And that's the thing is like, if that's something that we're having to brief people on specifically, it's already a threat. Like it's already happening.
Let me say that I do not think, while I think that we should tighten security as much as we can, America will always be at a disadvantage when it comes to IP with a totalitarian state, by definition. Because one, we want, and we should want skilled people, smart people from other countries to come here and assimilate and become American. Every once in a while, you're going to get people who fake that. And even when in our tightest security state during the Manhattan Project, the instructions on how to build a plutonium device simply walked out of the lab in New Mexico and went straight to Moscow. That was when we were at our most vigilant.
Yeah.
And I think the benefits of being an open society, while they have definite risks like that,
They do outweigh.
they outweigh.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, I come back to, I think the broad strokes principle of the matter is no totalitarian state can ascend relative to a Western state. It could find itself temporarily at an advantage, but over the long term, communism and totalitarianism more specifically it's less efficient, it is less useful, and it does not turn the individual, the energy and innovation and all the potential of the individuals within the society to the benefit of that society.
Yeah.
It turns it towards whatever it's turned towards. It can only look at one thing. And if it chooses the wrong thing, it collapses. Whereas a Western open society that has a free market and individual liberty can solve multiple problems at the same time, and it can do so better than anything.
While its economy continues to grow.
Correct.
Well, and to that point, I think, one thing people don't really talk about with this issue a ton is through the one-child policy, China's population will cut in half in the next 100 years. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. All the U.S. has to do to win on the economic front long term is just reproduce it, replacement. That's it. Like
That's
we don't.
exactly right.
There's no crazy, war that has to happen. We just have to keep minding our business and having babies.
Correct.
And the economic warfare issue will solve itself because their ability to produce will drastically reduce.
Well, and also, I in advance of this, I did a little research, and so I won't cite the exact details because it's boring. But if you look at America's balance sheet, the overall balance sheet, and I'm not talking about the deficit, although in percentage of GDP, our deficit is smaller than China's. So that's one metric right there that would suggest that we are not declining because their deficit is larger than ours by now in real terms, like dollar amount, our deficit is larger, but relative to GDP,
Which is what actually matters.
which is what, yes, theirs is larger. But even more important,
It's our debt to income for
Right.
those that don't speak nerd.
correct. Thank you. That's a good point to make. But even larger, when you look at our debts versus our assets. So your overall, how much money in assets, how much valuable stuff do we have versus debt? And we are, depending on how you calculate it, either 1.5 or 3 times more assets relative to China. Our economy is 1 to 3 times stronger in real overall terms. The way to look at it would be, I may have this big credit card bill. I may be in debt on this credit card bill by $1 million, but my house is worth $30 million. If you do that comparison with China, their overall debt versus their overall assets, they have larger debt versus their assets as well. So not only their year-to-year deficit is larger, but their overall balance sheet is weaker. So on economic terms, we are stronger in every regard. Those economic terms dictate the relative military strength. And therefore, and we already know, just based on, I mean, obviously, our military, what did you say earlier? We have like the top 5 militaries?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. And not that China isn't growing and
5 biggest
militarizing.
militaries in the world.
Right. China is growing militarily, but they cannot project that power outside of their region.
Well, they
whereas
also
we do.
don't have the body of experience.
Right.
I mean, they haven't, like, the U.S. has been involved in war, for better or for worse, for the last 100 years plus.
And but not necessarily direct war, but policing the trade lanes, which is the most important thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have just a wealth of knowledge on how to conduct and wage warfare that is worth just as much as the assets that our military possesses, certainly.
And to China's credit, they have wisely stayed out of conflict, because I think they understand that there is a huge learning curve for them. If they do go to war, they need to go to war with a smaller adversary first. To
One that we don't care about.
correct,
Specifically.
so as to avoid going toe to toe with us right now. Because if there was any doubt, whether you love America or hate it, the recent Iran thing proves, and the Venezuela thing
yep.
proves that, whoa,
We can do some scary shit.
I did not know that we were capable, and I'm pretty tied in. I was surprised at what we were able to pull off, and both in Venezuela, no casualties, very few casualties, not that any casualty is good, but very few casualties in Iran. Whether you agree with the war or not, that's irrelevant. Whoa. The area denial assets that Iran had were pretty robust for what they were.
Until they weren't.
And we were able to get through them in
Like a hot knife through butter. Yeah,
It was
speed,
nuts.
precision, just
And
execution.
I
Crazy.
did not know we could do that. So the American military is, even at a time where I would say our society is not particularly healthy, strangely, that has not appeared in the military.
No.
I would have thought that our military would be less capable because we're having an internal crisis at home. We don't spend as much as a proportion of GDP on military expenditures as we used to. Not that's a good thing. You'd like to keep that as low as possible, because when you're not using a military, it's kind of wasted. I'm of the libertarian bent that I'd say the government should be smaller, and that should include the military. But regardless, being in our position, I don't think there's any way around. We need a robust military. I just didn't think it was this robust. I didn't think it could do what it did. So if you look at just military to military, even though China is larger in its mobilization ability and now has a per unit larger navy, not by tonnage, but not by a long shot, I don't think that we are actually peer to peer. We're near peer, but we're not peer to peer.
I have a couple friends that are in the military that have stressed that it is their opinion that China is a peer adversary and they're operating with intelligence that you and I don't have access to. However, my serious doubts with that come again from the ability to field the equipment. Because it's like if you're the kid that mom and dad bought all of the nicest baseball equipment for, you have the brand new bat, you've got the most expensive cleats, you got the really cool sliding mitts, you've got the nice helmet, you got the $500 glove, but you can't throw a ball to save your life. Doesn't matter how nice all of your equipment is, you can't field it. You can't use it. You can't swing that bat. You can't use that glove. So they are effectively useless in your hands. And that's where the United States will always shine out over Russia or China or North Korea or any of the adversaries that get thrown. Iran. I mean, again, like Iran has been flinging rockets at, Israel through its proxies at most. The United States occupied Afghanistan and Iraq for 20 years.
At least Afghanistan for 20 years. Yeah, but
took,
did both simultaneously.
Simultaneously. We took the place over and moved in.
Right.
And stayed there for 2 decades. And did so in a way that didn't require our citizens at home to ration anything. Our lives went on relatively unobstructed.
Yes, not that actually we spent way too much money and
not an argument for saying that was a good thing or a bad thing, but it is the truth.
But you and I grew up when that was going on and we didn't really feel it. Not like the people in World War II felt it.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, our economy in some ways continued to grow while that was happening.
It did.
So
yes.
I think the idea behind us being a declining power is something that feels almost like a fever dream from certain people on the far right and the far left. Like you want for that to be true.
I think there's that. I also think that and it's probably not a bad thing. I think it's probably also let's make this problem bigger and scarier because it is a problem and we should all be aware of it.
Sure.
Like that's the nice way of reading into the government possibly hyping up China's threat so that we're all ready to fight it. But I would say that I think that on the economic terms and military terms, the real world data as we see it suggests that China is not able to go toe-to-toe with us, and economically speaking, so militarily we know, and while they might be getting more sophisticated, like what you said, until you actually put all that stuff into practice and actually learn how to use all your cool military equipment, you might have cool stuff, it might be on par with our cool stuff, but you're not going to be able to use it as well as we would use it. Moreover, we invented that stuff, are still inventing it, and all China is doing is copying it. So we will always have a more intimate knowledge of how it works because we invented it as opposed to just copied it.
I mean, we kind of covered the economic and the military side. What are your thoughts on the tech side of things?
Yeah,
Since it's fair to say at this point, a country's power is determined by those 3 things.
So this is the Deus Ex Machina sort of thing. This could be the wild card of this whole discussion. Now, granted, I don't actually think it's a wild card because we've already covered America is more innovative. I think with regards to AI, as long as we don't do what Europe has done, which is say we're not going to do it. We're going to make sure for obscure safety reasons, whatever that is. I don't see how they're any safer because we're still developing it.
Nanny state.
Yeah, that I'm not. While I think there are definite dangers with AI, which we have discussed, and there are more that we haven't discussed, I don't think just hiding from it is gonna, like Europe is doing, is the right response. If you put us, as long as we don't hamstring ourselves, America will win the AI battle. Only because, one, most of the major AI companies are here. They have no reason to go anywhere else. And they're gonna be better because we're more innovative. I mean, we innovate better than anybody else because of our system. Whether you like it or not, we're a free market capitalist system, which definitely has its downsides, but communism has way more downsides.
Yeah,
than
and
ours.
I mean, one of the major upsides to that is we're willing to beat the piss out of you with money for bright and brilliant ideas. Look at Bezos, look at Musk, and I will look at Zuckerberg, look at Gates. I'll rest my case there.
There is no shortage of major names that have made major improvements to your and my lives in our lifetimes, and going all the way back, America has produced and attracted.
Yeah, I love or
so
hate the
many.
guys. I mean, Bezos reinvented logistics. Musk reinvigorated space travel for the United States.
I don't like either of those people. I do not care. I'm glad they're here, and
Yeah.
more power to them. I don't like either of them.
I hope that they never have an incentive to leave.
Correct. I want more of them, not less.
And that's the thing is, like, you may have personal foibles against them, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that do. But the reality of this is that there is no denying that they have improved the average American's experience in America for the rest of forever. I mean, plenty of people hate billionaires. Nobody's boycotting Amazon.
Yes, I can have random crap delivered to my fat face because
Immediately.
of Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
If he hadn't done it, that wouldn't. Maybe somebody else would have done it, but they wouldn't have done it like him.
Yeah,
Done
well,
like
and
that.
to that extent, I don't know if services like Postmates or Uber Eats or things that deliver food would have existed if somebody hadn't gone, man, I want to be the Amazon of food.
Right, I can and prove the built the backbone, said we could do that. The logistical know-how.
The logistics side of things, I mean,
Yeah.
it's affected the way the United States Postal Service works.
But even if let's say that the argument would be, well, somebody else would have done it. Yes, but somebody else would have had to do it, and so it still takes the individual rising up to do that.
And what system facilitates it
and
the
what
most?
system facilitates that exactly. So I think that we will win the AI race as long as we don't lose it. If we decide that we do not, that we're gonna, for weird Bernie Sanders / Luddite reasons, want to destroy the machine, we will win the AI race. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not in some dire economic straits.
Sure.
So, and we've talked about this a little bit, but now, granted, everything I'm saying here also applies to China, and they're in a worse place.
Well, and that's kind of before we continue on this, I think that that's the important thing that everybody needs to take away from this conversation, whether it's us that's having it or anybody else you're listening to, is it doesn't, how dire our economic situation is or is not matters most in comparison to who you're comparing it to. Because realistically, well, yes, I agree. Like, compared to prior versions of America, our economy is trashed right now. That doesn't mean that it's worse than China's or worse than Russia's or worse than Europe's. And I think that that's an important litmus here is, like, we were talking about this earlier today, and I said, yeah, like, America's in a rough spot, but we're in a far better spot than pretty much everybody else.
Right. And even though we're in a worse spot economically, as in the overall health, the fundamental health of the economy is too lopsided, we still, each and every one of us, are living far better lives than our predecessors. like the access to things. Look at what we're doing right now.
Even in just a generation,
Right.
half a generation.
So
I mean, I have at 32, I have way cooler stuff and way cheaper stuff than my parents did at my age. And my parents are only 20 years older than me. So, like, the only counter argument that I will give anybody any credit to is, oh, well, houses were cheaper back then. Yeah, they were. Houses were also smaller on average back then.
and had less
And
cool
had
stuff
less
in
stuff
them.
in them
Right.
and were more poorly insulated. I'm in the construction industry. Come at me. Like the housing market, yeah, you're right. Houses are more expensive. That's a fair claim. But cars are more expensive, but they do more. Houses have more. They're better, built in terms of standards and codes. Because there's always this debate of like, oh, well, old homes are better. And it's like, dude, I work on houses. Old homes have lead everywhere. All the paint, anything before 79 has lead paint in it somewhere. The plumbing in them is lead. Your siding might have asbestos. Your ceiling, if you have popcorn ceilings, before the 80s, that was definitely asbestos. Like the codes for your electrical didn't exist until the 80s. So to sit here and tell me, oh, well, homes are just more expensive and man, it's not fair. Yeah, the standards have changed. The materials have changed.
Well, and our government is doing things to make housing more expensive, and not just our government, but our economy is doing it. Our corporations are, and that's a real problem. I'm not minimizing it.
I'm not minimizing that problem at all, but more expensive does not mean inaccessible. My parents didn't have an iPhone.
Correct.
And that's what I'm talking about, or a MacBook. And the things that they could afford are far different than the things that I'm able to afford with far less buying power with the dollar than what they have.
Correct. So, and that is still true. What is going on in our economy, though, right now is signs that if we continue to do what we're doing, we will be the last generation that had it better than our predecessors.
Yeah. And that is a fair claim.
So but those problems are fixable. And now the way to fix them, our political apparatus is going to have to get its shit together because even the current plan from the Trump administration, to me, is not serious enough about it.
Yeah.
Granted, the broad strokes of it, not to say that, I mean, they have some very smart people that know what they're doing, I'm sure. And it is, my Democrat friends, I'm sorry to say, you don't like the Orange Man. I totally get that. I don't particularly like him as a person. That's not relevant to me. I don't care. It's just like Elon Musk or Bezos. Like, are they likable? Would I sit down and have a beer with them? Let them watch my kids? Like, that's not, I don't care. The problem I want them to solve is the problem I put
Purely
them in the job for.
transactional. What can you do for me?
Like, you don't have to like him. You don't have to like any, regardless. I don't like him all that much. That's not, he's a far better manager of the economy than his Democratic counterparts. And that's for a myriad of reasons. The Democrats are embracing socialism at the moment, which is just really dumb economically.
And also incredibly expensive.
And so the Trump administration is better economically than the Democrats. I still think there are serious problems with their plan. I would do it differently. Not to say that I am I'm not the perfect manager of an economy either. So the Trump administration might be right and I might be wrong. I have reasons to suspect that I'm right. But regardless, the issue is going to be our political apparatus. And the only way that our political apparatus is going to do the right thing is if we, the people, force them to, and we still can.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's actually my primary concern, is not necessarily the political apparatus, but more so that our generation and Gen Z and soon to be Gen Alpha are the least politically involved, most head in the sand group of people that
they talk about politics more, but they don't do politics.
Yeah, like they don't show up to vote. They don't get involved. They have en masse very uneducated opinions that they feel very strongly about. They have bigger feelings about less educated opinions than the people that came before them. And I'm talking about my generation just as much as I am those that are younger than me. So before anybody comes at me over this, understand that like I know that this is a Gen X millennial problem just as much as it's Gen Z and Gen Alpha. It's I mean, the boomers were the last people that really tried to form educated opinions on politics en masse. So and that's a problem that needs to be changed, because if you want the situation to get solved, you need to know what situation you want to have solved and how you would like to see it solved, so that you know who to vote for to solve it.
And then be willing to negotiate with your countrymen in order to do it. And right now we're just in our feelings quite a bit without
throwing
actually
rocks at each other from our houses,
which is really dumb. But the broad strokes, my understanding, I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, the broad strokes, the plan right now for our deficit, which is a real problem, although it is not, I would argue, it is not the existential problem that some very smart people who I like say it is. I do not think it is, because it could become an existential problem if we don't address it. And because it doesn't appear like we're taking as meaningful steps as we could to address it, I still think it's a real danger. But the plan is, we are in, at the moment, what's called fiscal dominance, which basically means that our payments on the debt are such that we have to continue to inflate the currency, or else we will get a liquidity freeze in the economy. So it means basically that if we do not continue to inflate the dollar, the liquidity in the economy, money moving around the economy, will shrink to the point that new businesses can't form and current businesses can't expand, and you would get a liquidity or credit freeze, and then it would really, the economy, think of it like an engine seizing up, and it would cease to function, and then it'd be a real problem. We got ourselves into that problem by spending way more than the government, spending way more than it was bringing in, and now we're stuck. We have to continue to inflate the dollar in order to make the payments on our debt. But and this, to the administration's credit, their plan, although I think it's too risky for my taste, I would do more and simultaneously do less in other ways. Their plan is, we are going to outgrow the pace of inflation, but we're going to continue to inflate through quantitative easing by interest rate manipulation. But we're going to outgrow that pace. And if we outgrow that pace, the average American worker's wages go up higher than the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
And then the economy can return to a healthy state, because the Main Street economy is far more important than the Wall Street economy. Because it's the basic engine, the driver.
Yeah.
All the Wall Street economy is dependent upon the Main Street economy. So if you can get that balance correct, to where we're not increasing our amount of debt, and we can see a light at the end of the tunnel that, we're going to grow enough to where, as long as we don't keep spending more money every year, we can start to pay down the debt, even if we're not paying down much of it, even if we stay about $30 trillion in debt for 50 years. And as long as that curve is on its way down as opposed to continuing to rise, we can continue to make, the way to think of it is, we're making minimum payments on our credit card, but the money we're making each year is going up. That's the basic broad strokes of the current plan. The Democratic plan is, let's spend more money and shrink the economy for various weird reasons, I guess, for equality purposes, like Obama saying we should tax more for fairness' sake. Like, even if it's bad for us, we should tax more? Like, I don't know. Yeah, for fairness' sake. I'm not sure how that's fair, but whatever. So that's a bad plan.
Also, we're going to take all of your used cars off the market and make you buy new ones.
Yeah,
for
great idea.
The environment's sake.
Sure, that helped the environment quite a lot. I feel like it helped the large car corporations better, but whatever. So that is the broad strokes plan. And if we do that, then I think that our overall long-term economy, which will still go through some turbulent times, is healthy. And for what you said, exactly, everyone else is doing worse than us.
Yeah.
Everyone else is doing worse than us. And we're still attracting bright minds
And that's
to come
like,
here.
to kind of close this out, that's the metric that I think really matters the most, that people pay the least amount of attention to, because it's easy to get stuck in the echo chamber of the talking heads, talking about, doom and gloom of how bad our economy is. And the reality of this is that it's all relative. Bad compared to what? Bad compared to America previously, or bad compared to other countries? Because again, that's realistically, in terms of our peace and security, what matters the most. Now, I understand it may be a little bit harder for you to afford things in this inflated economy than it was maybe 10 years ago. And that's a fair argument that I'm certainly sensitive to. But I think another fair argument that I wish more people were sensitive to is that we're stupid with our money. As a collective, Americans are the least financially literate today that we have ever been at any point in our history. And I am just as guilty. I spent dumb money on dumb business ideas or dumb things that I didn't need. Like I am only recently starting to figure this out. It's not like I'm a decade into being, Mr. Junior Dave Ramsey here. I'm not. But I do understand that while I disagree with Dave Ramsey on 90% of things, the 10% that I agree with him on is that we just spend too much money on stupid, frivolous things. And if people could cut out stupid, frivolous things and still find maybe one or two things that improve their quality of life and make life worth living for them, and only spend on those two or three things instead of everything, they would have more money left over paycheck for paycheck. And more money paycheck to paycheck that's left over is more money month to month, which is more money year to year. And all of a sudden, now you've got a down payment for a house. Like, it does add up that quickly. And people don't think about things that way. And that's just because, as a collective, we've been told that it's perfectly reasonable for you to want everything on planet Earth, because we live in a society that's constantly trying to sell you everything all the time. A society of decadent excess.
And our economy in the past has made it easier than it currently is to access those things while still being relatively frivolous with our money.
Yeah.
The nifty 50s, I mean, that went on. The 20s was the roaring 20s. People were pretty frivolous with their money at the time, and the Depression happened, and there was a course correction. Well, this is another course correction. We're feeling the consequences of our actions, both at an individual level and at a societal level with regards to our economy. But it's not existential, especially compared to everyone else.
No, and it will be okay.
Everyone else is in a worse situation. We are still the engine of our economy. The overall fundamentals are strong, and it's basically the battle between, and I'll leave it at this for me, the battle between us and China is ours to lose. We're cleanly in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
We could run away with this if we wanted to, and all we have to do is not hate each other so much that we divide politically, and make some wiser decisions both at a personal level, economically, and politically.
Yeah.
And we will
just avoid sprinting through the field, stepping on every rake we find.
Correct. If we can make fewer mistakes than we're currently making, we will be firmly in charge of the AI race, but more broadly, our rivalry with China. And I really think and hope that as long as we don't do something stupid like get into a war with China, our rivalry may actually be good for both sides.
Yeah, everybody might benefit.
That historically, that's dubious, but our history is a little bit different because nukes may keep us from fighting each other directly. And so maybe this rivalry could redound to the benefit of
economic innovation and positive influence on each country's global region. Because again, like, China occupies a region the United States is wholly uninterested in.
Correct.
So, I mean, there's plenty of room for both of us to exist and spread out without needing to draw guns and start shooting at each other.
Right. And all of this is about getting into the fact that we are very actively stepping into control of the world's energy resources, which is I mean, that's what all economies are based on, the ability to do useful work.
Yep.
And the fact that we are now controlling more of the energy sector than we ever have before. Yet another reason why, as long as we don't do something stupid and we just exercise just a tiny bit of prudence and not step on those rakes, we'll be just fine.